Y'all, what's going on YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. This is Darian with Darian the Dev, and you guys are tuning in for another live stream with a really good friend of mine, and I'm really excited for you guys to hear her story. Her name is La Fontaine, and she is a graduate from Flatiron Coding Bootcamp out in New York. And La has an incredible story, and she's one of the most gifted and talented bootcamp graduates that I've ever met. And even the story of how we met is pretty cool, pretty interesting. So we'll get her to talk about that a little bit. We'll chat about that. And I'm really just excited for you guys to kind of just hear La's journey of how she got from coding bootcamp to where she is today, working as a full stack software engineer, and just some of the steps that she took to learn certain things. She did a lot of interviews, so she has a lot of experience to speak on from different angles and perspectives. So really excited for you guys to meet her. I think she has a lot of valuable information, especially for any bootcamp graduate. She graduated really recently. She graduated in 2019, and she's already doing extremely well in the industry. So getting ready to bring her on right now. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, especially if you guys have found this content helpful. If you guys haven't been to the channel before and you're brand new, I help non-technical people get into coding or get their first job as a developer on this channel. So if you guys are into that, make sure you subscribe. And get ready to go ahead and call La, bring her in. Make sure that you guys leave any comments, anything that you guys want to ask if you're on, and I can definitely put that up, and La and I can talk about that on the stream. So make sure you guys leave your comments and everything in the comment section, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and get ready to call her, and we'll get this thing going. La,
What's up? What's up?
what is going on, girl?
Nothing much.
All right, so I'm gonna let you go ahead and introduce yourself. I already gave him a little bit of a warm up, but go ahead and tell him a little bit more about who you are.
All right. My name is Law Fountain. I'm a software developer, software engineer, community advocate, and I don't know, pretty much about me.
All right, La. So I already kind of prefaced the conversation. You got a ton of valuable experiences. You graduated bootcamp recently in 2019, so I think you've come incredibly far since bootcamp, and I think you got a lot of valuable knowledge for anybody who might be starting bootcamp, going into it, and everything. So, so since bootcamp, how long have you actually been a professional dev?
Wow, probably a month this week, actually, maybe the 7th.
Okay. And okay, so before you got into coding and everything, can you tell us a little bit about your past life and your career?
Yeah, so prior to coding, I was a social worker, so I worked with youth, pretty much like a product manager. I sort of managed the whole residential treatment facility through recreation. So I did that for quite a bit of time, and I don't know, I wouldn't say I got bored. I would just say I wanted something more. I reached the point in my career where I knew financially I wasn't going to make any more money at that company. And I knew in nonprofit that if you switch careers, more than likely you would have to take a huge pay cut. So I wasn't really concerned about the pay cut. It was just in nonprofit, there's no guarantee you will ever get back to the point that you were making once you get to a certain level. I was making, I think, about 85 at that point when I left nonprofit. So I decided that I was going to leave and try something different. I got an opportunity at the Y, which I made considerably less at the Y. But I did that for like a month, and I realized I didn't have enough skills. I didn't have the skills that it would take to actually to do more. When I wanted to make more money, I wanted to do more. I wanted to own my own business. I wanted to own my own company. So I took a couple classes in stocks. That was pretty cool for a while. And I decided to go to school and get an MBA, so that I could learn more about the economy, actually, because stocks was very interesting to me. And also because I had a lot of experience as a director, so I figured I could probably do some type of business stuff. And I wanted to be an entrepreneur, so I figured it would make sense while I was figuring out what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I don't know, I sort of miss working with the kids. I sort of miss doing a lot of the projects and building systems with them. So I sort of figured that maybe I could learn how to code and I could continue to do that type of work without having to actually be there to interface with so many people. And I started that journey of coding. I decided to take a minor in computer science while I was getting my MBA.
Oh, wow.
And towards the end, I think I wanted to do a boot camp because I wanted more hard skill in that. So I think my last semester of getting my master's degree, I ended up doing a class in a boot camp prep class. So every night from like 6 to 9, like 4 days a week. So I think it was like 6 weeks we did it.
Yeah.
I did that to prepare to get into a boot camp. It took like 3 months actually.
Whoa. Okay, so you said a couple important things actually. So one, I didn't know that you took you said some classes in computer science.
Yeah, I took a undergrad minor, so I took all the basic classes in computer science. Only class I didn't take was operating systems. So I took all the data structures, algorithms, computer science 1, 2. I took internet, so familiarity with like web development prior to coming in. And advanced Java. So yeah.
So how much? Okay, so you were actually coding then. So what? I guess how much time did you spend, like in coding in that class?
Well, I wouldn't say I was actually coding. If you take computer science in school, you actually are just doing a lot of, I don't know, how would I call it? I learned a lot of what the basics in computer science with the for loops and all that stuff. Then data structures, it pretty much just told me what heaps were and what these things were. Yeah. And I got quizzed on whether I could move the structures properly. I didn't really understand why I was doing that or what the purpose of. I think I learned that doing a boot camp actually. Doing that boot camp was the prep course was pretty good actually. They had me do a lot of functions, like build basic functions. Not only through building basic functions, I started to understand the purpose of data structures, why I would learn how to do algorithms. Yeah. And then doing basic functions to like basic algorithms. So I started to learn there. So I think taking that class the last 6 weeks would help me also because I was in the algorithm class during that time and data structures.
So before you went to coding boot camp, you had already taken classes in computer science and went to a boot camp prep class.
Yeah, and I started off teaching myself C. So I did C prior to summer report school, and I did a visual basic class right before school as well. So
okay, so you had already dabbled in multiple languages before you went to boot camp.
Well, I mean, dabble. I couldn't code them, but yeah, I dabbled in them. I was very familiar with. I was very familiar with what I was doing, but I just couldn't.
Right. That's fair. Okay, so in the coding, the boot camp prep, what were you doing in that? Like, or what? I guess what was that like compared to the computer science classes?
It was hard. I chose to go to one of the. Well, over here in New York, they have a lot of boot camps, and they have about maybe I would say about three or four to the top. So I applied to Full Stack. I wanted to apply to Full Stack, HackerRank, App Academy. They were my top. App Academy was my number 1. Full Stack was my number 2, and HackerRank was my number 3. I ended up applying to Flatiron because you always have to have options. And Flatiron actually had the same stack that App Academy had. So I was more comfortable with that stack because App Academy taught Ruby, and I did their prep classes when I was in school. And Ruby's very close to Java, so all of it very made sense to me. So I was sort of wanting to stay closer to what already made sense as opposed to going to JavaScript. But I didn't do a lot of JavaScript, and JavaScript was completely different. And both of those programs did full stack and JavaScript. So I was trying to just avoid trying to go jump into a whole new language all over again and stick with what I knew.
Of course.
Yeah, that's where. So that thing at the boot camp prep course, you spent the first week learning functions, but it went fast. And every week you tested, and you had to get 100% correct, or they kicked you out.
Wow.
So you had an opportunity at the beginning of the week to try to take a test to practice, maybe another practice test in the middle of the week, and at the end of the week, your third test, and you were out. And we started out with like maybe 35 people in our class. We ended up with maybe like 8, and I think I ended up with only 3 of them.
Your graduating class had 3 people?
Wait. I went to App Academy. I got into App Academy. App Academy was a very, very intense class. I did not stay in App Academy. I left App Academy. I went to Flatiron. So that App Academy is where I learned all the fundamentals. And that class, it was like 28 people in that bootcamp prep class. We dropped down to 8, and we all got in as 3 of us. I don't know how many of them graduated. I assume all 3 of them graduated.
So how long were you at App Academy?
So I did the prep for like 6 weeks, and then I did 2 weeks at App Academy. I was done.
Okay, and then it also sounds like, number one, you're in the New York market or in that area, so it sounds like you had multiple options for your boot camp. So up here, Grand Circus is pretty much it. We just got something called General Assembly that's coming up here now. Yeah. But Grand Circus, before that, it was pretty much our go-to. So you had options, and it sounds like you had kind of done some research. You already said you had your top 3 picked out, and then you end up going to a one that wasn't even in the top 3. So you had like at least 4 options. So I guess, what were you researching, or what did you, in terms of like to make your decision, and then what did you value, in a boot camp to make you decide to want to go there?
At first, of course, you look at the industry. You see, what boot camps are honestly, getting the most rate. Who are getting the most. I guess, I don't know, the companies like the most.
Right, exactly. The placement.
I mean, if you're not biased, if you're not going and talking to just your best friends or the people who are rooting for one, you get a pretty good understanding of which boot camp are better prepare their kids curriculum-wise better for the field we're trying to do. App Academy is very computer science oriented. They spend a lot of time on a lot of algorithms and data structures. So that was really cool as well. So that was really important to me. Also, I like the culture. I don't know. App Academy was small. Like they were pretty small, but this was even smaller. Like, I don't know, they seemed real team oriented, like almost like I'm an athlete, so athletes, scholarship sports, so it's like that type of culture. So I like that. I mean, I didn't really get that feel from the other ones. I went to the other ones and it was cool, but I didn't really get that type of feel from them. I don't know, I just like that. I just like that feel from them. So that made me think about them for that. And then finally the cost,
of course.
All the App Academy had tuition deferred, so you don't pay to get a job.
Okay.
Was important.
Right.
Also, they were the most expensive. That was important. But because they were the most expensive, when I was aware that what it would take for me to stay there and what I would lose to have to stay there, I was like, it was it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah.
So you decide to go to Flatiron, and what boot camp did you take, or I guess what's the boot camp called? What do you learn in it?
So I went to Flatiron. I ended up doing, why did I do the Flatiron? I went to Flatiron because App Academy had a rigorous test in. I took like 3 tests to get into the school. I had like maybe 3, I had all these different things to study. And I just didn't know. And like I said, I really like Ruby. So although I knew that the other schools might have been ranked higher, I like the stack. So I like the stack. And then what I liked about Flatiron was that, which was different than the other schools, which honestly was why I was intrigued too, is that, there's 2 parts of getting a job. And when I went to App Academy, what I realized was that all these boot camps are the same. For more or less, they're going to give you the type of curriculum. And ultimately, you're going to always have, no matter what happens in life, you have the people at the top, the people at the bottom, and most of the people in the middle. And the people in the middle, you got to do a lot of work to get where you have to go. I'm the people in the middle, so I got to work hard to go where I got to go. So I figured that out the first couple of weeks I was there. Although the kids were really super, super smart there, I realized that it really didn't matter what boot camp I went to. I had to make sure I did certain things to ensure that I got the job that I wanted to get.
Right.
So once I realized that, what I liked about Flatiron was that the social aspect. They really focused on integrating into work, like communicating with people, working with people, talking with people more often. And I thought that was really important because I came from the nonprofit field. And I was just really concerned about how I would integrate with a different culture. And I felt like Flatiron really focused a lot on the culture and the coding. So it was a little bit slowed down, which I liked as well because it gave me more of an opportunity to study the way I like to study. So I was pretty cool with that.
And so like my boot camp was Java, right? Like it was mine was called a Java boot camp. So yours, that's what I'm saying. Was it called like a React full stack or Red? Like what did they call? What did they title the? Did it have it, or is it like full stack software engineer?
Web development.
Web development. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So how long was your boot camp?
15 weeks.
15 full time.
Full time.
Okay. And so the full time schedule, mine was 9 to 5. Is it something similar to that?
Yeah.
It's just like that?
Yeah.
9 to 5. Okay. So 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, right? Okay. And what was the first week like when you got there? So you already did you already took some classes. You were pretty familiar, I would say. So going into it, so the first week, what was that like for you?
Easy.
Okay. Cool.
It was really easy. The first, I mean, because they had a different structure how they operated. For me, it was. I think for me, what I struggled with was just the test there. Because at this point now, I failed 2 tests at App Academy. I've been testing so much over there, so I was just like really super panicked about tests. So that for me was probably the most challenging part of being at Flatiron.
And when you say test, you're talking what, like a coding check, like a time coding test or a challenge or something?
Yeah,
okay.
Challenge you got to take every 2 weeks, whatever, and you know.
Okay.
So, but it was the first couple of weeks was pretty cool because I had already did Ruby. So I did so much Ruby with App Academy. The Ruby was really good. I was pretty good with Ruby at this point. And they didn't do Ruby the way Flatiron did. So which was cool about App Academy. Which was cool about Flatiron was that the way they taught it, I was able to build a lot of the basic skills that I didn't quite get or understand when I was at App Academy. So just how to manipulate objects and things like that, I was able to learn a lot of little things that I didn't learn well because it was just so fast for me at App Academy. So that was pretty cool. And I like their curriculum. I like their lesson plans and all that stuff. So it really helps. Nice. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you what made it. I guess what made the format good for you as a learner? Like, was it I guess one-on-one time with a teacher or a TA, or like you said, was it mainly lectures or slideshows, or what did you like about how the curriculum was presented?
I think that for me it was like I had an opportunity to I research a lot. I really try to understand the concept, to understand what's going on. And although all boot camps are fast and they don't really give you a lot of time to really do that, I felt like Flatiron gave me more time. It gave me a lot more time to slow down and sort of understand what was going on before I moved at a certain type of pace. Yeah, I thought that was it. Like I said, I thought the lesson plans, I didn't really have to follow the lesson plans. I thought what I liked about Flatiron too is that they had the first week we learned something, and the next week we did a project. What was it? No, we did every 3 weeks. So the first week we learned something. The second week we did like a test, the code challenge, and the third week we did a project. So every 3 weeks we were doing a project with teammates. That was pretty cool too. We got a lot of projects in. That was really cool for me. Hands-on stuff. We focused a lot on the projects. So that was cool.
Okay. So a lot of projects. And it also sounds like it was just a better. So when you said the first one, App Academy, was too fast paced, give me an example. What was fast paced?
So like the distance from my house to both of the is about 9 a.m. No, I had to be both places by 9 a.m. But App Academy we had to be about I think 8:30. Maybe 8:20 something, and you have to like check in. Well, it could have been 9 o'clock. It could have been, I don't know. It was early. It was like around the time, but you had to check in. You had to have a sign-in time. When you get in at that time, you don't have your computer, so you get in, you start right away, and you pair program for like maybe a half hour, 45 minutes with a partner, some type of something. Then you move from that to lecture. You go to lecture. You lecture from whatever time to like lunchtime, a little bit before lunch. You go in there and you pair program all day long to probably about I don't know, 5 o'clock, then you finish, you have like a group time, and then you leave. Then you go home, you have to study all the stuff you have for the next day for class. And you do that again for the first 3 weeks, and at the first 3 days. At the first 3 days, you know everything you need to know for the test that you have to have on Monday. So you have to pass or you fail. Then on Thursday and Friday, the same schedule, but you learn data structures and computer science stuff.
Did you have labs or projects like each night, homework essentially?
Yeah, you had to learn the stuff for the next day. So like if we were learning about objects, they lectured that day or they went over the homework, but you had to do all the homework that night or you wouldn't be able to do the stuff.
Right.
So weren't like,
wow, yeah.
Flatiron, the projects are like, okay, well, we just spent the whole time learning Ruby on Rails and Ruby, so you guys need to build a full stack Ruby project. You know, it could be whatever you want, but you got to be full stack. Over there, it was like, all right, we're in today, and on Monday we're going to work on, all right, this week is an algorithm week, so Monday we're going to work on rebuilding all the Ruby methods from scratch without using the method, building like a monkey patch, and you're going to do it with a partner.
Nice.
15 minutes on, 15 minutes off.
That does sound like a good strategy.
Like I said, I'm not saying it was bad. It was just that for me, I didn't know enough computer science to keep up with that pace. It was fast for me. So when it came time to take the test, it was just I wasn't able to remember. I didn't get an opportunity to do that. So I don't think they were a bad program. I like the program. I don't have any regrets about it. It's just that I wasn't prepared enough. I didn't know enough to be able to sustain that level of work.
That pace.
Exactly. With Flatiron, it was a little bit slower pace. I didn't have to know as much. You know what I mean? Like, so that was different.
I mean, it's just funny because, I mean, my boot camp was exactly the same way. You know what I mean? Like, in terms of the format, I mean, the lecture down to the you know, take the lesson from the day, go home, do the lab or the project for the night, come back the next day, next topic. I wouldn't say we pair program, but, like, I wouldn't say it sounds like in yours it was like a focus, like y'all specifically sat in like I think ours was more or less like you just work on your lab and try to get it done, but you just naturally would talk to people or ask for help or see what somebody else is doing, but it wasn't so much like a focus that we had to pair program. But it's just crazy how the format is very similar. Like what you said, the coding boot camps are all kind of the same. I mean, from what I've heard, they all 9 to 5, right? Like lecture, homework that night, come back the next, you know, pair programming, all that stuff is pretty standard. Okay, so let me see. So I'm not gonna ask you the next question. The next question was gonna be, did you feel ready for boot camp? I'm not gonna ask you that question.
I mean, you could ask. I didn't feel ready for App Academy. I put it off. I got accepted in July, and I asked to postpone it to September, and I still was unable to stay. So I put it off. I didn't feel ready for that. Even as I reflected on it, had I known what I known when I got out of it, I still probably wouldn't have made it through.
Wow.
Very fast.
Wow.
Flatiron, I still wouldn't say I felt prepared. I felt like, you know, you always feel like you could know more. If I would have knew this, it would have been easier doing this. So I think I don't think I knew. I don't think I was prepared for Flatiron. I was ready to go. I didn't want to put that much time between. I had already been out of work like 2.5 years. So it was like, I needed to make a decision and do something. Like, you know, I didn't plan on not finishing App Academy, so it was like make a decision. And
so speaking of working, did you work while you were in boot camp at all?
No.
You just committed to the curriculum.
4 years off, I committed to just doing me. To like, you know, I spent all that time like in nonprofits working. You work so much, like like my life became work. So it was like, all right, I need to have a life. Like, so I stopped.
I hear you on that one. Yeah,
that was pretty much life. After that, so no work.
Now, how do you feel about that? For other people who might be listening, watching, how do you feel about working during coding bootcamp? Do you think that you could have still digested the material the same way if you were working and trying to go to a coding bootcamp? Or what are your recommendations for somebody who wants to work a part-time job or try to figure out something, you know, work-wise while they're in a bootcamp?
Personally, I mean, I think everybody has a personal choice about how they learn. You know, I think, you know, I can't. I need to focus on what I'm focusing on in order for me to give 100% and be there. I got to be full and present in what I'm doing. So I like to be full and present in everything I do. But, you know, there might be other people out there who feel like they can be partially involved and be able to make it. As far as the work-wise, though, from what I've seen out there, I feel like it hinders you a lot of times I find that people at boot camps aren't working at coding, and they're not working in like software engineering jobs or software engineering roles. They're working in something completely different than software engineering. So I find a lot of times that hurts you, because when you get out, especially as we're moving on, there's so many boot camps out there, so many people that's graduated from boot camps. They're gonna want to know that you're all in. That how do they know you're all in? And you're sort of diverted. Your attention diverted, and there's so many things that you have to learn to get a job. Let alone be a efficient coder.
It's very true. It's very true. So speaking of a job, were you applying for jobs while you were in coding bootcamp?
No, I had a couple offers, but I mean not offers, interview offers, like interviews. But they were hard. I mean, not hard, but they take up your time. You gotta, I don't know, they just take up your time. They want so much from you. And when you're in boot camp, I was actually in my last 3 weeks, it was just very difficult to do both. I was trying to get out. I was trying to, meet the requirements and do the things I needed to do to get out. So it was very hard to do.
Okay, so you didn't apply, but you got interview offers?
Yeah, from LinkedIn.
Okay, so you must have updated your
interview offers. Yeah.
So did you update your LinkedIn to say you were a software developer and what you were learning, or did you, how did those interview offers come up?
So, I wanted to do software development, not just because I liked it, but because when I was getting my MBA, and I told you I went into entrepreneurship and directorship and leadership. Mm-hmm. I had never worked in a private field before, so I did a lot of interning. And I think my first internship was like at a financial analyst as a financial analyst at a real estate company. And I started doing like analyzations in the beginning, and then at some point they wanted me to sort of help them with their data. So I thought it was like a phone book or something like that, but it was Salesforce. So I ended up doing Salesforce that entire internship, and then from then all my internships, I landed an internship at a Shopkeep, which is a startup, a small startup. Well, you wouldn't consider it a startup, like a seed B or seed C startup. And they were trying to go IPO. So I landed a summer job there as a Salesforce developer / administrator. So I ended up doing that all summer. And then I went from there. I got a job at a seed startup doing back-end development, project management, and digital marketing. So all that was on my resume because that was what I was doing currently at that time. I guess another plug for you is that I feel like if you're not working, you should be working. You know what I mean? Because work is work. If you're getting paid for it, work is work. I'm not suggesting people go out there and not get paid, but like I say, if you're not working, you should be working.
I like that a lot. So you basically created these opportunities. Was that before you went to boot camp, or that was all before you went to boot camp?
I went to boot camp.
So at that point, was it just those CS classes that you took, or was it that and the boot camp prep course? Like, how much experience did you have development wise when you were getting those jobs?
Well, the first thing for Salesforce, I didn't realize Salesforce was a database until I think I did that summer job, and in September I learned database in school. So that's when I realized that Salesforce was a database. I think that all the bootcamp stuff was all based on, honestly, App Academy preparing me. Honestly. I didn't know what function. I didn't understand all that stuff well, and I really think that the 6 weeks helped me understand what these things, structures were, how I was supposed to use them. That's where all my foundational data structures and algorithm stuff came from there. So I think that, honestly, if I had to attribute anything to me getting into boot camps or preparing me, it would have been that. That definitely. It just gave me the theoretical knowledge, so I understood what these things were supposed to do. I understand mathematically how to get certain numbers and things like that. I understand, from complexities a lot better because I understand that stuff, dimensions. So I think it helped me with that stuff. Helped me with the origins. I'm into history, so helped me with that type of stuff. But honestly, just the physical doing the work, I think it clearly was App Academy. The job is do this for my job, so it's not like I'm there teaching me anything.
Yeah, exactly. Do you remember what your final project was in your boot camp?
Yeah, I built a hair salon. It was a hair salon with front end React, back end Rails, and it had I use Action Cable, so I use WebSockets so that you can have real time communication through calendar appointment making, and you can have like a online chatting service with the people in the store.
And did you have a team or was that?
No, single.
Really?
Yeah.
Everybody's projects are individual.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's one difference for anybody out there. My boot camp, everybody's final project was a team oriented thing, and so that you always had like at least 4 people to one project, and we had like 2 weeks to work on it. So how long did they give you to work on your final project?
3 weeks.
3 weeks. Okay. So React front end, Rails back end, Salon app, and everything. And did you have like a demo day where you showed it off?
Yeah.
And then how did that go? Did you get any interest from employers at the demo day, or did you get to talk? Like, how did anything come from demo day? Or
well, that's when Flatiron doesn't have a demo day like most boot camps, so you don't have a demo day where employers come. It's just that your peers, your family, and friends come. So maybe 1 or 2 people who might come from a company, but for the most part, it's just your. Okay. What Flatiron does do, I don't know if other boot camps do, but after you graduate, you get allowed to go to one career fair where they invite employers in and they get you at least 3 interviews. So interviewing, you get at least 3 interviews. So
yeah, so did you have career counseling or like someone to help you navigate this tech space kind of?
Well, I had a career coach, so I there like once a week, and pretty much out there once a week. But I've done this career. I remember I just came from getting my MBA, so some of my stuff like my resume and all that stuff pretty much I had already got hits on it already, so I already knew it was good. So it wasn't too much that I needed to do, but change it into more of a tech format. And so in addition, I had already done this stuff. I had friends also too from App Academy who told me what their process was like. So I met with my coach for more like we talked about how my process was going, but more or less, I did the search.
Okay, yeah. So we definitely had something a little similar. They had predetermined interviews kind of for my class in particular, but not every class had that. So we had like 5 interviews scheduled on day 1. First day of boot camp, we knew like this day, we were going to interview with certain companies, but it wasn't really an interview. It was kind of just like like face-to-face, get to know this person. Do we want to interview? Does this person know what are they learning? Do they know what they're talking about? And then they would bring us in for like a real interview. So I didn't get any I'm lying. I got 1 offer from that, but it was for a data analyst role. It wasn't for an actual developer role, and I turned it down. It was offered for like $37,500, and I turned it down for data analyst only because it was a lot of like moving. So whenever they got a new client, they wanted they get it in a big Excel sheet, right? Like 300,000 like records, and they needed to clean the data and move it, into somewhere else. But they basically need to clean a bunch of data, and it was like, hey, can you write Excel algorithms to clean this data? How would you take spaces out, and how would you do this and do that? And it's like, that's not really development. So, it's kind of helpful depending on if your boot camp does it or not. They set you up with interviews, but it's interesting how, again, we both had career coaches and everything, and then you had to kind of navigate the space, like getting your actual job kind of on your own. And whereas ours, they set us up with interviews, but it still didn't lead to many jobs for everybody.
Well, I would say Flatiron, they set us up they set up with the first career fair, and then my career coach, like I say, she was just there for he or she, but I had a she. She was just there for individual career guidance. We had a career center, so they sent out email blasts. So they would send out I would say like maybe in the beginning. I mean, for a while, again, everything goes through seasons. So when I first got out, that first month I got out of boot camp, I didn't apply to any job. I redid all my projects by myself to make sure I knew what I was doing. But then after that,
Smart move.
I think there was our career fair then for me started like a month after I was out. So I started my boot camp on May 5th. And that's when I started my job search, I mean. So I went to that career fair. So after that career fair, there wasn't another career fair to maybe the end of the summer. So our career center was on fire. They didn't have anybody to worry about. They were sending us like blast of this job is hiring, this job is hiring. So I was going on interviews. I went on a lot of interviews from Flatiron. I mean, I bombed a lot, but I went on a lot of good interviews. Great companies, Tumblr, Chase, like great companies, no problems, great roles. It's just that they sort of didn't work out. Even to the point where I got a job, I still was getting interviews with Flatiron. They were still sending me things and asking me, am I interested in that or interested in this?
Yeah, so we had something like a Slack channel where they would kind of like keep everybody informed on like up to date opportunities in the area or whatever. So it sounds like kind of what they were sending y'all email. Well, are they sending you personally like emails, like jobs for you personally?
So they have people. They have like a career center. So they're like doing like their. It's almost like they're Flatiron. I guess you would call them Flatiron recruiters, and they call businesses who are hiring, and they show them a portfolio of resumes. And businesses might say, "Hey, I want to see you, and they blast out."
That's a nice trade-off. That's kind of a nice trade-off. They didn't set you up with like predetermined interviews, but they have somebody working on your behalf as an individual, helping you get interviews. So it's kind of same thing almost. So can you talk about any of those interviews that you went on, and kind of just some of your experiences as a boot camp graduate, the types of stuff like they got thrown at you, how you felt, some of the feedback you might have got?
So all right, so when I got out, I was already clear about the kind of job I wanted. I knew a couple things. I wanted to make more money than I made in my last job. I wanted to start off. This was a new career. I was coming in entry level. I was fine with that, but I wanted to come in at more money than I left at my last job. So I knew that return on investment would make sense in a few years. So that was a priority. But also what was a priority was that I wanted to be in a good environment. I wanted to work with good people. I wanted to work with smart people. I feel like I'm pretty smart, and I feel like I'm always working in an area where people are not as smart as I. And so it's just a lot. I wanted to work with people who felt like it's okay to be smart because they're smart. I wanted to work with people who felt like I want to work hard every day and it's okay to work hard every day. I wanted to be around people who sort of had the same type of work ethic and work thoughts as I was. So, and I wanted to be around a diverse area. I wanted to learn. I wanted to, like I said to you, I had worked so long and I don't regret it. It's not like I'm saying that, I worked and I threw my life away. I don't regret it at all. Like I enjoy what I did and I wouldn't change a thing. What I'm saying is when I stopped, I realized how dependent my life was on work. And I realized like that, like I have to have something for me if it wasn't anything else, if I didn't work. So for me, it was like, all right, I need to be able to work one job and pay my bills and live my life and live my life. So I wanted, those are important for me as well. So when I got out and I started interviewing for these jobs, I wanted to make sure. It was weird because Flatiron sent me a lot of, they didn't send me, they offered me a lot of opportunities. These opportunities were good opportunities, but they were like commercial type jobs. And I sort of thought I would be like in a startup and like maybe because I had a nonprofit background, I do a lot of different things. I thought I would be in a small startup, where I could do a lot of different things and learn pretty quickly. I was a little nervous about it because I knew coming out of boot camp, I didn't know a lot. I didn't know a lot at all. So I was worried about, would I be able to make it in that type of environment because I didn't know anything.
Right.
Feeling like I was dependent upon people. But I knew that's sort of what I wanted with a startup. So a lot of the interviews with Flatiron were the MBA. That was a tough interview. I guess real for that interview, one, I was late. New York traffic. I mean, I don't even say like that. You already say over it. Then they sent me a paper letting me know it was for, I think, software engineer, some type of analyst type. So I'm preparing my interview for that.
Right.
And he was interviewing me for the front end.
Oh, wow.
It was about front end, and it was just like, okay, well, we sort of missed that. But I didn't sort of regret that because I felt like once he told me more about what his company was about, and it was pretty much, I didn't know, like, the NBA does pretty well. So they're just pretty much, they're not really a competitive inside of a company. It's just pretty much an okay company. I didn't think I wanted to work for a company. I'm a competitor. I'm an athlete. So I wanted to work in a high pressure place where I was required to be smart and do something.
Yeah,
so,
it's gonna make you better.
Exactly. So that was important to me. So that was one. A bomb tumbler. That one.
Ooh.
Man.
Can you talk about that? The bombing experience is so real. I had someone comment on the video and say he had just bombed his first interview, and I was like, hey man, it just comes with the territory. It just happens. Can you talk about yours a little bit?
So I get there and it sounds dope. Like Tumblr, Party Yahoo. The guy was pretty cool. I be working with like the devs were pretty cool. They'd be remote. So then he's like, all right, I need you to do a coding assignment. So I'm like, cool. So this was before I worked on my coding pattern. So I'm just out of boot camp. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'll go solve the problem. So I'm typing, I'm solving it. I read the question. I copy the question from there to there, but I don't copy the example. I just copy the question. I never go reread the question. I glance at the question. So I solve the problem, which takes me forever. So he's already super tight that it's taking me too long to solve the problem. By the time I finish it, it works. But he says, it's a very good problem. You solved it very well. Your solution works, but that's not the problem we actually solved. I reread the question like, oh, man.
And it's bad because he gave you a compliment.
I'm like, that was a bomb. So,
ooh, but how much did you grow from that experience?
Well, it really wasn't that per se. What it was when I got out of boot camp, I had an idea that it was about volume. So I applied for 50 jobs the first. Was it 50 jobs a day? I think the first freaking week. No. I think maybe 150 jobs the first week or something. Something ridiculous, Jeff. Something ridiculous. Something crazy. Something ridiculous. Maybe 50. Maybe like 50 jobs, 10 jobs a day, 50 jobs a week. So maybe 50 to 75, because then you do a little bit extra on the side. So some crazy number like that. I'm thinking you don't get no hits. Yo, bro, I got maybe a 60% hit rate. Like people.
Wow.
Everybody wasn't saying yes, but they were hitting me back. So you got to respond to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So and I was interviewing. I'm bombing all kinds of interviews. I'm just bombing these interviews. I'm like, what the hell? So I started to feel like I didn't know what I was talking about. So what was smart was that. I thought as I was bombing stuff, I'm humble. I started to apply for internships that didn't pay. So I got an opportunity at a blockchain internship that didn't pay. So I took it. I took that opportunity.
So that's where you got your blockchain skills.
That's where I got it. So I worked it in Arizona, which was still dope. I mean, I wouldn't suggest that for everybody, but it was sort of like your old boys club. I mean, they weren't bad, they weren't disrespectful, they weren't sexist, they weren't anything that was discriminatory or inappropriate, but it was just boys. They were just really boys, whatever, do it on your own, figure it out, just do your own thing, you got just real boys, environment, everything. But it was sort of, that's where I learned to code. I think that's where they were like, what are you looking for me for answers for? You got to figure this out. You want to be able to work in this world. They didn't just say it to me. They said it to everybody.
Everybody. Wow.
You need to figure that out. If you can't figure it out, you'll never get a job. And we're not paying you.
Tough love.
I had to pretty much learn blockchain, read documentation, learn how to put stuff together, learn everything. So I definitely would credit them also. I think between App Academy and them, they sort of catapulted my experience from boot camp to a whole nother level. And I think that once I finished that, I went to the startup thing, the startup bus ride. And the time I came back, I was a whole new coder. That's where I was at.
All right, so quick aside, since you mentioned it, I was gonna bring it up, but so I already mentioned before you came on the stream that we had a really cool experience of how we met, which now relates back to the startup bus that Lau was just talking about. So I met Lau on the startup bus, and we basically formed a team. We met. I went to New York for the first time, and we met with was it 5 people? We had a team of 5. So we had a team of 5, like 30 something people total that got on the bus together. And then our team specifically had 5 people on it. We had never met before or anything like that. And for 5 days, we built a startup on a bus while we traveled to different cities and whatnot. And La and I and one other team member, we pretty much took the dev work on, and that's how we met. So you want to talk a little bit about Startup Bus and kind of some of your takeaways from it, what it was like?
Startup Bus was pretty very interesting for me. I think I had been to a lot of other hackathons. I was, at the time I was going to I was working, doing my internship, and I was doing a lot of hackathons, just trying to get out there, meet people, networking, and doing stuff like that. So I was coming to the Startup Bus because I wanted to code. So I was pretty geeked that it was 3 of us in the team. We had a solid plan.
Yeah.
I think coming in, I think I was I didn't really think that I knew enough coding to be on a hackathon.
I'm right there with you. I felt the same way.
Insecure about my coding ability.
I felt the same way. Yep.
I sort of had like a lot of judgment because you guys already had a job. So I sort of figured that because you guys had a job that, hey, that it was, that because you guys had a job that, that you knew a whole lot about coding. So I was sort of intimidated by that, like, dang, I don't know enough. So I was surprised that I knew a lot when it came to the whole situation, that I knew a lot and I was able to provide, like, I felt like I was sort of more like a product manager and then I was a developer.
Yeah.
So I think what was interesting, I think in that role, I sort of had a different sense of accountability for coding. I've always been a leader in my job and always been able to be successful. I'm an athlete and, tons of pressure on me all the time. Never had any problem with that. But I think this was different pressure. It was almost like, I'm a boxer. So like when you get in that ring, the bell ring, it's just you and another person. It's a whole different type of pressure because it's you. It's like there's nobody else to blame. It's just you. So, my coding, I felt like if we didn't produce, we didn't produce. So I felt accountable. Yeah. Like we, that everyone else would have something and we wouldn't have anything. So
just for reference, I think it's amazing what you just said about how you felt like insecure, self-conscious, which I did too as a developer going on that bus, because you got all these people that you don't know and you don't know what they know and how good they are, where you are gonna fall, like, you know what I mean? So I feel you completely on that feeling. But I think what's crazy about that is when I met La and we started working on our database models and just everything, I was like, she is one of the best bootcamp developers that I know. Like I was like, wow, I was really glad that I had you to ping things off of, ideas to draw things out with, to do diagrams, UML, just to just set all our stuff up together. I was really glad you were there, and I learned so much from you too. And so the thing about it is, I think the takeaway is put yourself out there. Like as a developer, no matter what stage you're at, like you, number one, even if you don't know as much as the people that you're around, I think you still learn a ton. I know I learned a ton from Startup Bus. And again, like, most hackathons are a day or whatever, but so this was 5 days, extended period of time, but I still think my growth in that 5 days was exponential. You know what I mean? Just because you're with these people, you, like you said, you're under pressure, you got a deadline, you want to produce, and you want to win. You want to win the competition. So you're going to do whatever, lose sleep to, get that built. But I think the moral of the story is, like, put yourself out there, because you won't know. I mean, whether, like, when you finish boot camp, I think it's pretty common knowledge you don't know anything. At the end of the day, like, let's just get that off the table. Like, you go to boot camp, you're gonna learn how to code, but you're still gonna not know anything. So at that point, though, it's like what you just said, you have to get different frames of reference to know where you are on the scale. So if you don't go to meetups, hackathons, conferences, talks, something, just get yourself involved. You'll never. First of all, that's how we met, so we wouldn't even be having this conversation or having this connection, or the fact that we still support each other on projects and work on things outside of our jobs now. We stay in touch, all types of things. So it's like there's so many benefits, not only to just your growth as a dev, but just, in general, putting yourself out there, going to these things. So, yeah, I'm glad we touched on that, Startup Bus. So let's see. What was your biggest realization in the professional world as a developer once you got hired?
I guess that people don't know a lot. That all the, I don't know. I guess when you're out there trying to find a job and you hear a lot of things that people tell you about what it is you need to do to get a job, and what you need to say, what you need to know, what you need to wear, where you need to go, all these different hypotheses people have about jobs. What I find is that, man, it's like dating. You have no reason. You don't even know when you're going to meet him or her. You don't know how you're going to meet him or her. You don't even know why you're going to meet him or her. You just met him. That's just really what it is. Like, I feel like, I love the people I work with, but we're all different. You know what I mean? And like, we all don't fit any stereotype that's out there in the world about how you get hired.
Yeah. So I think that's funny you said people don't know as much. I think that's true. I mean, everyone has their specialty, I would say, but it's just no way for everyone to know everything. So you have people who are really good at certain things, whether even if that is their job, they can be really good at their job, but outside those boundaries of that job title, they might not know a ton about, in certain cases, it could be DevOps stuff. It could be, your particular app. Like in my case, the person that manages me doesn't know my code base necessarily, but that doesn't really, stop anything. So you just never know. But that's funny because everybody's got their strengths, but again, you just can't. There's no way to know everything in this industry. So everybody definitely has their flaws. So if you could go back and give yourself any advice before you went to coding bootcamp, what would it be?
Jeez. Oh, good question. I should have an answer for that one, right? Wow. I don't really live with regrets in life. But like life happens in a process form, and if I go back, it's almost like the movie Back to the Future. If I change one thing about my life, then I change everything. Like the butterfly effect. But if I had to look at the boot camp and I had to go and say anything, shoot, that's a good question. Maybe, sheesh. Well, now, if I had the ability to know what I know now when I went through boot camp, I would probably, me, I'm a geek, so I probably would study more. Only not because I would want to be more prepared for the boot camp, but just I know now there were times where I could have studied and learned certain things that I didn't know was important. But if you had a cheat sheet and I knew they were important, I probably would know them now. I don't know. I mean, honestly, to be honest with you, I wouldn't do anything different. I think that App Academy was important. I think that process was important. I think I learned a lot from that process. I think I am who I am today because of that process. I think Flatiron was important. I think I learned a lot from that process. So I think school was important. Part of me would say that, I didn't even go to school, but I didn't go to school to learn schoolwork. I went to school to learn about life. I learned a lot about life. And I know it's a hard price to pay, but, as an only kid, sometimes I don't really have a lot of resources to figure that out. So I have to get it where I can get it at. And, I needed to learn how the economy works. I need to learn about business. I need to learn about numbers. I need to learn about marketing. I need to learn about, things that I don't know about that my network and my friends don't talk about every day. So I probably wouldn't change that either. And even the process to get a job. I felt like, I learned a lot. I met a lot of great people. My network is tremendous nowadays. And I think, I have the confidence I have about, my job. Like, I have a lot of confidence now about, not that I'm a great software developer, that I can figure things out and I can get better. And I don't think I had confidence about myself like a couple months ago, So I just think that everything that whole process was very instrumental. If there was some way I could make it cheaper, I would have figured out a way to do that. But,
yeah.
About it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't really change, I don't know.
Yeah, so the next question is kind of similar, which was gonna be, did you have any tips for anybody going to boot camp? But before I ask you that, I don't want to skip over what you did to prepare for your interviews, to be good at interviewing, because I know you personally, right? So I know this, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on that for other people. Basically, like what you did and the type of work ethic you put in to be ready for coding interviews, technical interviews, because that is something that a lot of people, they can build projects all day possibly, but like put them in front of a whiteboard or give them a timed algorithm, ask them to write a data structure, and they're gonna freeze up. So, what was kind of your process for getting comfortable for technical interviews?
It's frustrating, so let's start there. But
Yeah.
started in college. I was pretty good at computer science, one, because I had already seen it. Remember, I taught myself C. I didn't finish all of C, but, of course, you get up to the part where even the computer science one gets up to. And I did Visual Basic, so that was pretty cool. By the time we got to computer science 2, I just didn't understand what they were talking about. I was talking about English. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, why are you even telling me this stuff? Like, they're not very descriptive. They just tell you to do this and do that and copy this and copy that. And it was frustrating. But what I learned in school, I guess what I practiced in school, was that just to not get upset and just to listen. And just maybe later on it might make sense to me. So I think that. So a lot of just trying to understand. Then in boot camp, the same thing. I think so. I read a lot of books. I have a lot of books in my house, the Java books on data structures, Udemy videos on data structures, just trying to understand them better prior to boot camp, because I was already in school and I was doing these internships. Like I was doing databases. I was building different databases. You had to know to have so many through and all those different relationships. So I was reading these books. I was reading the books that I was getting in school. I didn't understand what they were talking about, but I knew math. That makes sense to me. And I know business. Business makes sense to me. And a lot of the stuff I understood through a business light. So that was pretty cool. So when it got time, when I started to bomb these interviews, I started to understand as I started to fail. I'm an athlete, so I don't look at things from that somebody's not giving me something. I look at it from like, damn, what am I not doing right? If I'm feeling the same way 3 times in a row, then I'm definitely not doing something right. Mm-hmm. So as I started to look at that, I realized, one, like I said to you before, was I wasn't reading the question. I would read it and skim it and start to solve it. And then I would solve it the wrong way, and I would get it wrong, and I would get frustrated, but I would do the same thing over and over and over again. So I had to start to say to myself, stop. You need to read the question again, read it again, and read it again. And then I started to say, all right, I started to do that, and then I started getting the same feedback over again that you're thinking, maybe if you, wrote things down, your thinking would be a little bit more clear. So I didn't understand that. So then I started to pseudocode it out. So then I started to say, all right, well, I'm going to read it 5 times, and then I'm going to pseudocode every single line out and then as I started to do that, all these things that I've been doing prior to that started to make sense. I started to understand the data structures. In coding projects, you have to now move your JSON data to the front, and you have to figure out how to manipulate this data. And it starts to make sense. Like, oh, it's the same thing I was doing. I was trying to manipulate that string, and everything starts to make sense when you do it more and more and more. But it's a combination of everything. It's the studying the data structures raw. The boring part is the reading my books about what they say about these things. It's watching videos about it. It's practicing stuff, doing stuff, and doing the practice problems over and over again. App Academy helped me with that part. No lie, it was like the school detention, just doing stuff over and over again for hours and hours on end. And listening to feedback when I'm failing. And that probably was the most important. That listening to the feedback, even though, it sucks to get rejected from a job like 3 times in a row when you like need a job and you're going to be, bankrupt or evicted from your apartment or your house. And so, but if you don't listen to the feedback, then how do you know how to make a change?
Yeah. What were some of your resources for your interview and stuff? Like you used LeetCode, didn't you? LeetCode, and what else?
At the end, I used LeetCode. I use a lot of Udemy videos. I use Interview Kate. I do have that book coding, the cracking the code interview. A lot of Udemy videos, and yeah. And what did I use? I didn't use HackerRank. I used some Code Wars. I did Code Wars. I did a lot of Code Wars. I like Code Wars.
Code Wars is the game site?
It's not. It does. I guess it looks like a game site, but it's still algorithms.
Right. But it's like you do it inside of a game in the browser.
Yeah.
Yep. I've seen that one. I think I did some C# stuff in there too. So that's good. Just in case anybody wants to kind of know her path, because that is one of the more challenging parts of getting the job, in my opinion, is just getting ready to to do well on technical interviews?
I'm sorry, my phone, my laptop's about to die, so we gotta move down the stairs. I'm gonna try to keep light on.
No, you're good. Actually, I was just gonna wrap up with my last two questions. So I'll ask them at the same time. You can answer them both, and then we'll get out of here. So basically, any tips for anybody who's going to a coding bootcamp, and then what do you see your next steps being in your career? You want to go further down the dev route? Do you want to go DevOps? Like, are you gonna get into architecture? Like, what's next for La?
You said any advice for anybody going to boot camp?
Yep.
I just think you should just know what you want to do. These things are expensive, and there's no guarantee anything in life. So I think if you're going to do it, just know who you are, what you are, and make sure you choose a boot camp for you. They're all, like I talked about, they're all different kinds that suit everyone's personality. So fit the one that you can do the best in, and you can, I guess, do well in. And where am I at in my life? I guess, I believe in multiple streams of wealth. So my software engineering world will lead me down the path of systems engineering. I'm a systems person. I like the way things go together. So architecture will probably be in that path as well. I think maybe consulting down the line somewhere, and eventually do my own thing.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I can't wait. La. I can't wait for you to do your own thing. I can't wait to keep seeing you grow as a dev. Thank you so much for taking the time out tonight after your day as a dev, a very busy day. I know working on some big apps, so I really appreciate you taking the time out to share your experience with everybody. So yeah, La, I appreciate you. I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna catch you on Whereby if you have a second, just so we can wrap up over there. Okay, cool. And then I'm gonna just wrap up the stream, and then we'll call it a night.
All right. Yep.
All right. Perfect.
All right.
Peace. All right, guys. So that was La, and again, I hope you guys got some value out of that. I hope that you. Sorry, guys, I gotta type up some text right here so that I can direct y'all, give you some next steps to go from here. Let me make this a little bit smaller. Let's see. Boom. All right, guys. So yeah, I really hope that you guys got a lot of value out of La's story. She's incredible. She's so talented. Again, she graduated in March, I believe, 2019. And you guys see how much she's grown as a dev, and hear some of her experiences. And hopefully that just is some inspiration, and hopefully it gives you some next steps as to what you can be doing to get better as a developer. And to pretty much just prepare you guys for that next step after Coding Bootcamp. Again, Coding Bootcamp is just the start of the journey. It's just where you get your feet wet, where you get the basic skills that you need to go and continue learning and growing. But that's up to you after bootcamp to continue doing that. So if you guys are on the fence about going to Coding Bootcamp, or if you think you might be going, or you want to go to Coding Bootcamp, check out the link daringthedev.thinkific.com. It's my free intro to Coding Bootcamp course, and you guys can go in there and get your first exposure to coding out of the way. You can build your first front end project. You'll also build your first back end project. And you guys will be well prepared for pretty much everything that I didn't know going into my first week of Coding Bootcamp. So I wanted to give that away as a free course. I felt like it's important before you go and spend so much money. If I had a resource to go to before Coding Bootcamp, I would have felt a lot more comfortable. So you guys feel free to check that out if it interests you. Other than that, thank you for tuning in. This is Darian with Darian the Dev. I'll see you guys in the next video, all right?